The encounter that changed everything. Marcus Ashford sat alone in the corner of Gate 47, staring at a boarding pass he had no intention of using. The flight to Tokyo had been called twice already, but his feet refused to move. Around him, the airport buzzed with life, families reuniting, businesspeople rushing, lovers embracing, but Marcus felt like a ghost among the living. At 52 years old, he had built an empire worth billions, yet tonight, on Christmas Eve, he had nowhere to go and no one waiting for him. His phone lay silent on his lap, the screen dark, no messages, no calls. He had everything the world said mattered, and absolutely nothing that did. That's when he heard the small voice cut through his fog of despair. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, stood before him clutching a worn teddy bear to her chest. Her eyes were red from crying, her pink backpack hung loosely from one shoulder, and her voice trembled as she asked the question that would unravel everything Marcus thought he knew about his life. "Are you lost too, mister?" The words hung in the air between them, innocent yet profound, as if this child could see straight through his expensive suit and into the hollow cavern where his heart used to be. Marcus looked into her tear-stained face and felt something he hadn't felt in years, the desperate, aching need to help someone other than himself. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in moments that change everything, please hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us we're all just trying to find our way home. The girl's name was Emma, and she had been separated from her grandmother in the crowded terminal. Through her sniffles and broken sentences, Marcus learned that she was supposed to fly to Denver where her mother was waiting, but somehow in the chaos of holiday travel, she and her grandmother had gotten separated. Emma had been wandering for almost an hour, too scared to ask security for help because a stranger once told her never to trust people in uniforms. Marcus felt his chest tighten as he listened to her story. Here was a child, lost and afraid, and yet she had approached him, a stranger, because something in his face told her he understood what it meant to be alone. Marcus knelt down to her eye level, his knees protesting against the cold airport floor, and he made her a promise. "We're going to find your grandmother together, and we're going to make sure you get home to your mom. I promise you, Emma. You're not alone anymore." As they walked through the terminal hand in hand, Marcus felt something shifting inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or stock prices or the next acquisition. He was thinking about this little girl's hand in his, trusting him completely, and how terrifyingly fragile that trust was. They searched for 90 minutes, Marcus using every resource at his disposal, security teams, announcement systems, even his own company's connections with airport management. Emma stayed close to him the whole time, occasionally looking up at him with eyes that held both fear and hope. She told him about her mother, a single parent working 2 jobs to make ends meet. She told him about her grandmother, who smelled like cinnamon and told the best stories. She told him about Christmas morning and how she hoped Santa would bring her mother a day off from work because that's all she really wanted. With every word, Emma was unknowingly peeling back the layers of armor Marcus had built around himself over decades of ruthless business dealings and personal failures. The turning point came when they finally found Emma's grandmother, Clara, sitting in a security office, frantic with worry. The reunion was everything Marcus had forgotten existed in the world, pure, unfiltered love and relief. Clara sobbed as she held Emma, thanking Marcus over and over, calling him an angel sent by God. But Marcus didn't feel like an angel. He felt like a man waking up from a very long, very cold sleep. As he prepared to walk away, Emma ran back to him and wrapped her small arms around his waist. She looked up at him with those impossibly wise eyes and said something that would echo in his mind for the rest of his life. "You were lost too, mister. But maybe we found each other so we could both find our way home." Marcus stood frozen as Emma and her grandmother walked toward their gate. The words reverberated through him like a bell that had finally been rung after years of silence. He pulled out his phone and stared at it, at the emptiness of his contact list despite hundreds of names. Colleagues, yes. Business partners, certainly. But friends, family, people who would worry if he simply disappeared. The answer was devastating in its simplicity: no one. He had spent 30 years climbing a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. He had won every battle in the boardroom and lost every war that mattered. His ex-wife had told him years ago that he had traded his soul for success, and he had laughed at her melodrama. But standing in that airport, watching a little girl who had nothing teach him everything, Marcus finally understood what she meant. He made a decision that night that defied every logical business instinct he had ever developed. Instead of boarding his flight to Tokyo for a deal that would add another $50 million to his net worth, Marcus bought a ticket to Denver. He needed to see this through, to understand what it meant to care about something beyond profit margins. When Emma and Clara boarded their plane, they were shocked to find Marcus sitting 3 rows behind them. Emma's face lit up with pure joy, and Clara looked at him with knowing eyes that suggested she understood he was running towards something rather than away from it. The flight was turbulent, both literally and metaphorically. As the plane shook through winter storms, Marcus found himself talking to Clara, really talking, for the first time in years, with someone who wasn't trying to sell him something or buy something from him. Clara told him about her late husband, about raising her daughter alone after he died, about watching her granddaughter grow up too fast because poverty forces children to mature before their time. She told him about love and loss, about faith and perseverance, about finding joy in the smallest moments because sometimes that's all you have. Marcus listened and felt pieces of himself that had been frozen for decades beginning to thaw. When they landed in Denver, Marcus watched as Emma ran into her mother's arms. Sarah, Emma's mother, was young, exhausted, and beautiful in the way that people who refuse to give up despite impossible odds are beautiful. She hugged her daughter and her mother, tears streaming down her face, completely unaware of the man standing awkwardly nearby who had helped bring them together. Emma grabbed Marcus's hand and pulled him forward, introducing him to her mother with such pride that Marcus felt his eyes burning. "This is Mr. Marcus, Mommy. He helped me when I was lost. He's really nice, even though he looks sad sometimes." Sarah invited Marcus to join them for their modest Christmas Eve dinner, an invitation he accepted without hesitation for the first time in his life. In Sarah's small apartment, decorated with handmade ornaments and a tree that leaned slightly to the left, Marcus experienced something he had forgotten existed: genuine human connection without agenda or transaction. They ate simple food, shared simple stories, and laughed with simple joy. Emma insisted Marcus help her leave cookies for Santa, and as he knelt beside her carefully arranging store-brand cookies on a paper plate, Marcus felt tears running down his face. This child, this family, had nothing by his world's standards, yet they had everything he had spent his entire life searching for. As midnight approached and Emma finally fell asleep on the couch clutching her teddy bear, Marcus sat with Sarah and Clara, drinking cheap coffee and talking about life. He told them things he had never told anyone, about his loneliness, his regrets, his realization that he had confused achievement with fulfillment. He told them about his estranged children who saw him as an ATM rather than a father, about his empty mansion that echoed with silence, about nights spent in 5-star hotels feeling more alone than he ever thought possible. Sarah and Clara listened without judgment, and when he finished, Sarah said something that changed his trajectory forever. "It's never too late to choose differently, Marcus. Every moment is a chance to become who you were meant to be." Marcus left that apartment at 2 in the morning with Emma's drawing clutched in his hand, a crayon picture of him and her holding hands under a Christmas tree with the words, "Thank you for finding me," written in a child's unsteady handwriting. He stood on the snowy street, breath misting in the cold air, and made a series of phone calls that would reshape his entire existence. He called his assistant and canceled the Tokyo deal. He called his lawyer and instructed him to begin drafting documents for a foundation. He called his daughter, whom he hadn't spoken to in 2 years, and left a voicemail that simply said, "I'm sorry, and I love you, and I want to try again if you'll let me." If this story has touched your heart, if you've felt the weight of what Marcus discovered in that airport, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us about a time someone's kindness changed your path, and share this with someone who might need to remember that it's never too late to find your way home. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of transformation. Marcus established the Emma Foundation, dedicated to helping single parents and their children access resources, education, and support. He reached out to his children, beginning the slow, painful, beautiful process of rebuilding what he had destroyed. He sold his mansion and moved into a modest home, discovering that space and silence were very different things. He became a regular volunteer at the local community center, using his business expertise to help struggling families build better futures. But more than any of this, Marcus learned to show up, not as the CEO, not as the billionaire, not as the deal maker, but simply as a human being trying to connect with other human beings. Emma and her family became like his own, filling holidays and weekends with the kind of chaotic, imperfect love that Marcus had always dismissed as a distraction. He attended Emma's school plays, helped Sarah with job applications that eventually led to a better position with reasonable hours, and listened to Clara's stories about the old days with the patience of someone who finally understands that presence is the greatest gift we can give each other. Through them, Marcus discovered that wealth means nothing if you have no one to share it with, and that the richest moments in life are often the quietest: a child's laughter, a shared meal, a hand held during a difficult moment. A year after that fateful Christmas Eve, Marcus stood once again in Gate 47 of that same airport. But this time, he wasn't alone. Emma held one hand, his daughter held the other, and behind them stood Sarah, Clara, his son, and a small group of people from the foundation, people whose lives had been changed because one little girl asked one lost man if he was lost too. Marcus looked around at these faces, at the family he had found in the most unexpected place, and felt something he had never felt in all his years of corporate success: peace. Real, profound, unshakable peace. Before we end, we have a special request. If you believe that sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths, if you believe in the power of second chances, please comment below, never too lost to be found. Let's fill this comment section with hope. Emma tugged on his sleeve and looked up at him with those same wise eyes that had seen through him a year ago. Are you still lost, Mr. Marcus? He knelt down, pulled her into a hug, and whispered the truest words he had ever spoken. No, sweetheart. I'm finally home. And as they walked together toward whatever came next, Marcus understood that being found isn't about reaching a destination, it's about allowing yourself to be seen, to be vulnerable, to be human. It's about recognizing that we're all just walking each other home, and that sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in the number of hearts we touch and the lives we change simply by showing up and caring. The airport bustled around them, full of people rushing toward their own destinations, their own versions of home. But Marcus walked slowly, savoring every step, grateful beyond measure for a little girl who had been brave enough to approach a stranger, wise enough to see his pain, and kind enough to help him find his way back to life. Some people spend their whole existence searching for meaning in boardrooms and bank accounts. Marcus had found his in the simple question of a lost child, and in learning that the only thing we ever really need to find is each other.